Welcome to another episode of Kiss My Assets.
The transparency, the openness, the communication is more than you could expect. I'm sold.
Don't let the fact that you don't know something or don't know enough about something hold you back.
I knew I wanted to invest. What better way to invest than to invest in what I already know that I love, which is real estate.
It was initially the 12% return, but it quickly turned into the people.
So welcome back. It's a new year. Sing Kiss My Assets.
Yes, it is a new year. Even better Kiss My Assets podcast this year.
Yes.
We have a lot of great things in store for our audience. So
mostly I got my hair done. That's going to be the improvement.
On the podcast, they're missing out. They should go to YouTube to see that, but it's looking great.
That's what the whole podcast can end there. So the big thing I think we need to point out, first, Jamison and Heather is our co-founder, and I'm Heather Andrews in Investor Relations. But not only are you our co-founder, you, according to Forbes, are an expert that can predict what the housing market will look like this year.
Thank you, Forbes.
Yeah.
And Forbes is a pretty good outlet. We were actually really excited that they took our prediction.
Yep.
So they opened it up for predictions. I'm sure they had several hundred people submit predictions, and
They didn't ask me for mine.
I represent kind of the company, so we'll include that. I'm sure they wouldn't take yours if you would. But
keep emailing them.
I think
But
there's 15 experts they quoted in this article, and so I was excited to be part of it.
Yeah, and you're in good company. These are I feel like big deals. So Danielle Hale, the chief economist for Realtor.com, called it a nobody's market, which is, I think, the best option when just nobody's happy.
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase it. She
Yes.
did better than me in phrasing it. I like that. Nobody.
And that's what I use for expectations with me. As long as we're both not happy, we both won. But she said there's advantages for both buyers and sellers. That there still is 22.8 more homes for sale, and homes are taking a little longer to sell. So that little advantage then to the buyer, where there's some more room for negotiation, but then the seller is not losing a lot of the equity or.
Yeah, and I think that real estate is always local. Like in my little neighborhood, I saw a house go on the market a few months ago, and I didn't think it would sell because it was pretty high price. It wasn't a big dramatic price decline, in the last 24 months, and it ended up selling at a pretty high value per square foot.
They believed in themselves.
It's very, very local, and so I think if I'm that's kind of a good way to put it. Is right now it's kind of a lot of unknowns when it comes to it, but ultimately it's very local.
So the next guy, who I thought was interesting, Bob, he's the president and chief executive officer of the National Apartment Association, talked about solutions for the housing affordability crisis and what we normally thought would be helpful. And then he's got a kind of a different idea.
Yeah, because I think we saw over the past few years with the pandemic and with everything that's going on, some intervention with apartments that didn't really pan out. So if you look at places like Oregon, California, they adopted some rent controls, and it didn't help the situation. It actually hurt the situation. And now those areas, they're seeing less investment of developers coming in wanting to build and put more supply on the market, which is more of an economic way to solve the housing crisis.
Yeah, more supply is going to equal better, more affordable apartments.
As there's more supply, it helps bring the price down.
Seems so simple. Another one, the president of RE/MAX, who probably knows a lot about homes, that despite looking into 2023, still millions of homes are going to be bought and sold. That even though people kind of first look at it as an investor, but really it's more emotional and more about their life situation and what's going on, so that no matter what, so they're very optimistic about what the spring kind of season is going to be, because people, they think inflation is going to be a little more under control, and people need homes, and they'll have life events.
And the other thing that's underneath all of this is wages are up and jobs are plentiful. So there is still a great energy around what's happening with the economy. And when you have that, just like on my street where the young couple came in and bought the pretty expensive home, when you have good wages, you can afford it.
But the best one in here, the very best, was Jamison and Heather, what were your thoughts about 2023? And this is relevant to me because you helped pay my mortgage.
Yeah. Well, when we submitted this to Forbes, I actually typed this up on my cell phone. I didn't know it was going to end up in Forbes, but my first thought is that 2023 will be the most predictable year when it comes to housing, or the most normal year.
I love predictable.
Because yes, most predictable since 2019.
Yeah.
Because since then it has been anything but predictable. 2020 values started going up. People were at home more.
Yes.
And wanted to get out of their small townhouse and buy up, and they started searching on Zillow and other places and started buying homes. Less people were selling because they didn't want to move during the pandemic, and that continued momentum drove right through 2021, and we saw huge increases in 2021 in prices, especially in large high growth areas in places like Arizona and the Sun Belt. And then in 2022, we saw a 4% increase in the federal funds rate, which meant early in the year, you might get a mortgage at 3%, and at the end of the year, you got a mortgage at 7%. And
this is why I will never sell my home. It is my coffin and my spouse.
Yes. Because if you got an interest rate at that point, it's locked in for 30 years. Anytime you get an interest rate going forward, you're going to have to pay the current interest rate. And so the reason why I think it's going to be more predictable this year is because there's a lot of people like you and like me who have a low fixed rate mortgage. And I'm not looking to move because I know even if I want to change my home, I'm going to have a higher interest rate and a higher mortgage. And so what it ends up doing is that it keeps that inventory that would normally churn. More people, I think, are going to say, no, let's stay put. And on the flip side, there's fewer buyers as well because it costs more to buy a home. Yeah. So I think this year is going to be a pretty predictable year. The Fed funds rate isn't going to increase another 4% this year. We know that.
Jerome Powell will not do that to me.
No, it's already they did that major work last year. So this year the rate should be more steady, and I think that we'll see some buyers, if they really want to buy a home, they'll go ahead and buy it now because the prices have softened slightly. And there's definitely not the competition to buy a home that there used to be. So you can spend your time, you can go through a normal process that you could before.
And I think there's a trend in people who do have that low rate will, if they want to buy a new home, move somewhere else, they will keep that as a rental property as opposed to selling it and losing that there.
Yeah, and that's a great idea. If you do need to move, a lot of folks are looking at that as an option because you can now cash flow that property potentially. The other thing that I put in the submission to Forbes talked about the construction pipeline of multifamily, and this year we're poised for our biggest year ever of new units coming on the market.
It's going to explode.
And it's been a long time coming because a lot of these projects have been in the works, they've been delayed, and this year, 2023, they should come on the market. And I think what also happens is the projects that are starting to get planned for 2024, 2025, they started those, developers like us started those and then said, well, interest rates changed this whole financial model, and I think a lot of those projects are going to go back on the back burner. Yeah. So that's the ebb and flow of development, real estate, and I think we will start to see that as we will have a glut of projects that are coming on now, and a glut of supply which we need, which will help with housing. Going forward, I think you will see a shortage starting as early as next year because of where interest rates are.
See, and I think it's important you're able to be really strategic and look ahead what that means, where people get to be really panicked that, we need housing, let's just build a ton of housing, and then you don't have the risk of oversaturation.
Yeah, because it's about a 2-year project process at a minimum to build an apartment building that might have 100 or 200 units. It takes a long time to raise the capital, to find the property, to get the zoning correctly, to start the building process. And so as people look out with their crystal ball, they know that interest rates are going to be higher than they were a few years ago. So now they have to adjust their financial models for those higher interest rates. That makes the projects less appealing.
I'm glad you have a crystal ball. And I expect every month to see you in Forbes now. There should be no reason you're
Oh, good. You're not, you don't have high expectations.
Not at all. Not at all. Okay.
I would be happy with that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay. One of my favorite articles, because this speaks to maybe my personality. The more dramatic the headline, the better. And this in the Intelligencer, just about remote work and the effect on remote work and on cities. But just this headline, remote work is poised to devastate America's cities. And this is how I feel. In any minor inconvenience, you could put my name in there, that it's just poised to devastate my life. So I identified with this.
Yeah, they did a good job on this headline, really clickbaity headline.
It's the first article I clicked and I sent you. I'm like, this is the one. But just how cities how are they going to survive when all these office buildings now are kind of, well, a big portion are sitting empty, and how that affects just the city around them.
Yeah, and we are seeing more companies now who 6 months ago said, go ahead and work from home.
Mm-hmm.
They're now saying you need to come in the office, but it's more of a hybrid model. And I think we're
Yes.
kind of now settling where some folks need to be in the office 2 days a week, 3 days a week, once a week. And so there will be a oversupply now of office. And we're seeing that in these big metro areas.
And as a person who personally benefits from a little bit of a hybrid, it's very appreciative. It makes a very good home life balance or home work balance.
Yeah.
But they found 90%. No, sorry, that's a lie. 29%. I just want to make it more dramatic. Americans were still working from home in October, and that by the end of this year, 30%. So it's only increasing, or I guess that's pretty much the same number.
Pretty much the same.
Yeah, same number. And then as you have less people going into work, they're not spending their money in the businesses around there, which then is less tax dollars within the city for the services they have available for the cities. This whole domino effect. And this person who wrote this article, who seems like they're a lovely person, his name's Eric, that he's like, there's a solution. We need housing. We should be converting these to housing, because this trend that we've talked about before is people wanting to live near where they work. And usually these buildings are already zoned for commercial residential. They're close to where they work. They're used now spending their money. They want to be able to walk to work. They want to have everything around them. That this is a big opportunity. And I think we're seeing a lot of trend here in Arizona of these kind of mixed use spaces.
And I also think that kind of comes at the same time as more people want to live in those areas that have activities, that they're near the core, where there's concerts, where there's restaurants, where there's nightlife. Especially younger folks want to live in those areas, and so there's been this revitalization of the core. And I think Eric's right, yes. But I also, from our experience and from the experience of other friends that we have who have done these conversions, when you're converting an office to a living space, you have to now reconfigure so many things when it comes to plumbing, because now you have bathrooms, you have kitchens. When it comes to the electrical layout, and you have to do that in an office space that has that maybe in one area for a large space, and now you have to go in, and maybe the bones are good, but you're going to have to spend a lot of capital to go and build these out. And it is a challenge. In the case of one of our friends who's in the process of doing this now, I know the budget is coming higher than they had hoped. I know that the renovation and the conversion has taken longer than they hoped. I know the city has been slower than they hoped. This doesn't happen overnight, and there's going to be many projects that people might start that don't end up working out. And you really have to know what you're doing. You have to know that it's going to be an extensive process. And if you look at each opportunity, there's going to be a big infusion of capital that you're going to have to invest to convert these to units. And at the end, there needs to be some equity at the end for the owner after all the expense. So
you got to make a little money.
If there's no equity at the end,
it was a fun hobby.
There's no money to pay back investors. Yes. There's no return, and you wouldn't have done it in the first place. So it is great in concept. I definitely agree with him.
I love concepts. Yes.
And then as this starts to play out, and I think it will play out, there's going to be some projects that aren't going to make sense because that building just doesn't work. And in our case, we converted a hotel, which was extended stay hotel.
Yes. already had the
And
kitchens.
It already had the kitchens and already
Yeah.
had the plumbing.
Yes.
That's easy. Now, all we need to do, we renovated it and brought it up,
And it's gorgeous.
the standard up. But now all we need to do is to get the city to approve that. But if you think of having to get the city to approve it, now you have to go in and add, 300 kitchens
Yes.
and 600 bathrooms. That's a lot of capital and a lot of execution that needs to be done.
Yeah,
Right?
a number of years ago in New York, I lived in an apartment building that had been an office conversion to multifamily down in the financial district, and it was fantastic. But there were some weird little corners and some weird little, the little stove was just two little burners, and it was a little different. But it did in an area where there wasn't a lot of housing. It was hard to find. I got to live in kind of a nice building, just a little character.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah. So,
I think that's
and it was
exactly
a company
what
that
it'll be.
specialized in this.
And that's New York, where housing is sparse and office is sparse. So I think the other debate here with some of these buildings that are seeing a lot of vacancy, some of these office buildings, is maybe there's some co-work opportunities where
Yes.
people are working from home, but they don't want to be at home.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some opportunities to where more people will come back to the office than have come back yet. And if they just hold tight and wait, that there'll be more of that coming. So, I don't think if you own an office building, you just
Start setting up tents.
automatically
or
say,
like-
hey, we
yeah.
need to convert this to housing. Some would make more
Yeah.
sense than others. There's some places where office buildings are that nobody would want to live there. It's a commercial area,
Yeah.
right? But maybe you can convert a portion of it, and it'll be interesting to see. I love seeing that development happen, but it's not an easy thing.
I think you're so fancy in your Forbes article, so maybe John, or sweet John Kabrowski, got a little jealous and decided to write his own article. I think so. This is what I love: is I found this article.
You were saying you were dramatic.
Yeah, a little
Oh,
bit. just stoking a little drama. When I was looking through articles for the week, I found this one that I thought, oh, this is fantastic for us. This makes so much sense. And then after reading, I'm like, this sounds like John, and it is in fact John Kabrowski.
Right.
So he made some predictions about what investors should know, just about Arizona and about the multifamily market here for this next year.
Yep.
And one of my favorite things, he loves to call us the darling of multifamily. And I take that very personal, as if I am specifically the darling of the multifamily market.
Yeah, John's been here for a long time, so he has a deep level of expertise in the Phoenix market. Not only just looking at the numbers, but also he has a really good feel for kind of the intuition. I think everyone who reads him, and especially people who are looking to invest in the Phoenix multifamily market, really value what he says.
I think that I really liked, he just said that with the number of things going on, that like the cryptocurrency had a little rough time, that there's a little bit of drop in the family home sales, things like that investors are asking more questions, they're digging into things, and when they do that, when they really are kind of educating themselves and looking at, they're finding that investments in Phoenix are he's strong fundamentals, which sounds just like John to me. And so I thought that was great.
Yeah, and I think the fundamentals when it comes to multifamily are a few things, but the main ones are strong job and wage growth.
Yep.
And we know that with the big investments that are happening here with the chip plants, more Phoenix, Chandler, we are on a really good trajectory when it comes to those
And getting
fundamentals.
a much more diverse jobs available, which
Yes.
is always strong for us.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and I think the other part that as we look at 2023, and this was an article about Berkadia's research.
yes,
So Berkadia is a big commercial real estate company, but we are looking at in 2023 going to be the biggest year in 20 years when it comes to new multifamily units on the market. Over 560,000 is what they're predicting that will come online in 2023. So the big question when you have that amount of supply coming on the market is, will that bring down price? Because we all know from Econ 101, lower supply, higher price. And we also know higher supply, lower the price.
yes,
So it can have a direct impact on, in the case of multifamily, what happens with rents. But so Berkadia is saying we're looking to have the biggest year ever, 562,000 new homes, or sorry, new apartment units the biggest in 20 years. But even though they do expect occupancy rate to come down a little bit, national average is like 96.5%, 97%. They
Yep.
expect it to be about 95%. That's because people continue to move into the areas where most of these units are being built, and there continues to be a shortage. They also expect rents are going to remain strong, so we
Yep.
may not see, the last few years we've seen rents go up quite high year over year. This year, with this additional inventory, there probably won't be big rent increases, so that's good for everybody.
But holding steady, which
Holding
is
steady.
fantastic.
So that's good for.
It's better for my heart.
It's good for investors.
Yeah.
It's also good for people to know that as more supply comes on, that is a good thing when it comes to housing.
Good job, Arcadia. Here, I'm gonna confess something. I read this article and I was like, this is fantastic. The CBRE and their outlook. And then it occurs to me, I do not know what the CBRE is, but I immediately trusted them and took them as an authority. But they are predicting what I like to call a chill recession. Just a casual, calm recession.
That made you feel better?
It did. It was so comforting. Whoever CBRE is, which you're going to tell me, something to do with real estate.
So Arcadia, or Bracadia, who we just talked about now, CBRE is another large commercial real estate brokerage,
Okay.
national.
I'm sure they're lovely.
Coldwell Banker, but they're commercial real estate side, so CBRE.
Okay. Good to know. I'll forget that by tomorrow.
But they
Yeah.
said they are expecting a moderate recession, and then we need to think about what does that mean when it comes to multifamily and commercial real estate, right? So they think that there'll be a bit of a slowdown when it comes to funds available to invest in new projects. So there'll be a little bit of a slowdown there, although it's been hot, so it's okay to have a little bit of slowdown, a little bit slower leasing activity. And I love in economic predictions, they're pretty general. So they think there'll be a slight slowdown in construction.
I love words like that. Slight. Just
And of all of the assets, so commercial real estate includes office, it includes retail, it includes industrial, it includes storage. I think
well, the thing I care most about, multifamily.
and they're saying the same thing that Bracadia is saying, where we're going to see additional supply come on the market, and but the vacancy rates are so low, occupancy is so strong that they think that these additional units that come on the market will get absorbed fairly quickly and without a big blip, in meaning that there won't be vast of people moving into these new buildings, abandoning old buildings. That's not the way that this tends to work.
People are going to be chill and think it through. Yes.
And
this article's like Prozac. I loved it.
but it's important to look at it because if you look at real estate values, the things that it can impact it, definitely what interest rates do, and we talk a lot about interest rates. The other thing that impacts it are job growth, wage growth, so that people can afford where they live. And the other big one is supply. So if there is a big supply like we're expecting this year, we need to know going in that there could be some opportunities where as these additional units come on the market, we're looking for projects that are not well managed, that are not meeting up to today's standard, where we can purchase these built assets, go renovate them, get them up to today's standard for today's renter, and have a good return for our investors. And we're also looking for opportunities to build from the ground up, which would come out in 18 months to 2 years down the road. And we think at that point there will be a need for additional units then, because a lot of those projects have now been put on the shelf.
And you are welcome to name that project after me.
the Heather.
Yes, the Heather.
That's a pretty good apartment.
Thank you.